3 rules that you need to bear in mind tonight? Well, I suppose we could say 4 if we use SOHCAHTOA, but basically, and it's not rules, I suppose. It's cos rule, sine rule, etc. Now, the area rule is, it can be written in many different ways, but a lot of the time, people will write it something like that: half AB sine C. The sine rule, it depends on what you're looking for. If you're looking for a side, you generally write the side on top first, and then the sine rule will look like that. However, if you are looking to find an angle, can we mute all their level, please? Cool. If you're trying to find an angle, then we would generally start by writing it like that, with the angles on top. Okay, so that's the area rule, the sine rule, and then the cos rule. If we're looking to find sides, it's generally written something like this. So that would be, if we're looking for sides, and you'll notice that the side is written first. If we're looking for angles, it will generally be written in a fraction form like that, where we have, and so this would be 2, and then this would be BC. So as we go into today, we're going to have to learn to apply these rules. And obviously, we've been doing this for about 6 lessons now, so hopefully this is reasonably familiar to you. The other thing we want to watch out for is, how do you decide what rule to use? And again, memorizing this is not necessarily what you have to do, but being aware of it as a checklist could be helpful. So, for example, you generally use the sine rule when there's no right angle involved, although it does work for when the right angle is involved. And then we look for either 2 sides and an angle. So if you've got 2 sides and an angle, but not the included angle, we use the sine rule. Or if we've got 2 angles and a side, then we can often use the sine rule. The cosine rule is generally used when you're given 2 sides and the included angle, or if you're given all 3 sides. That's generally when those tools are used. But in reality, you learn it by doing questions with them. That's how you do it. So, are there any questions or comments about the rules before we get going? I just want to give an opportunity if we need any clarification, or if anybody wants to ask a question. Otherwise, we'll go straight into the questions. All right, then let's get going. Okay. First question, multiple choice. You have to find the side X. Which of the 4 possible tools are you going to choose? Which of the 4 possible tools are you going to choose? Okay, so think about this. What are you given? So you're given an angle, another angle, and then you're given a side. So, and you want to find this thing called X over here. So I think that it's going to be, if I was trying to find this, I don't have 2 sides and an included angle. So I'm not going to use, well, it's not going to be Pythagoras or SOHCAHTOA because there's no 90 degrees. So it's either A or B. And I think the answer, if I was trying to find it, I would write X over the sine of 29 is equal to 32 over the sine of 77. And then I'd solve for X. And so my answer would be A, which is the sine rule. Okay, so it's important to think about what, in fact, I'm going to do this a lot. I'm going to ask you what tool is going to be used for the job. Okay, so the answer would be A. Let us see now. Let's do this in pieces. So there's 3 parts to this question. And we are going to start by trying to find angle BAC, which is over here. And I want you to say in the chat, what tool or what rule should I use to find, what do you think I'm going to have to do to find BAC? Or maybe you can even, maybe someone can tell me by coming online, how are we going to approach this problem? What can we find? What can't we find? So some people are saying the cos rule, but the problem is that you don't have 2 sides of the included angle. You're trying to find that angle. And you don't have all 3 sides either. Okay, so what I'm going to suggest is we use the sine rule. But if we start by trying to find the sine of A, the problem is we don't have the side opposite that. But I know that all triangles add up to a certain amount. So if I was to find B, so if I wanted to find B, I could use the sine rule by going the sine of B over 16 equals the sine of 37 over 11. And if I could work out B, I could probably work out what this is. So why don't you go ahead and see if you can use that combination of ideas. So you're going to try and find angle B first. So, and then after you find that, you can probably find angle BAC. Jenna, I see you are onto that. Yes, absolutely. So I want you guys to try and find angle B, and then I want you to try and find what A is. So Kevin, you can't use Pythagoras because there is no 90-degree triangle. So one of the things about this section is that the tools work for all triangles, but Pythagoras only works for a triangle with a right angle in it. And so you would have to use these new tools that we're learning about. So you can put your answer for B if you want in the chat, and then the answer for A. Or if you'd like to ask a question, just raise your hand and we can talk about it. But I think what I would be doing is I'd be trying to get, basically I would get the sine of beta equals this. And then I'd want to find what beta is. And then once I found what beta is, I can find what the other one is. Okay, so Amina, I think you're on the right track, guys. I'll get B in a moment for you. And then let's see if we can get what angle A is to go with that.
Mr. S, if you're able to take a question, David's hand is up.
Okay, just give me a second. I just want to make sure that I get this. Okay. So we should be getting 61.08, so basically 61.1 degrees there. And then what is my answer going to be for that one there? So David, I'll come to you in a moment once I start the next question. I just want to try and first finish this one off. So let's have a look. You should be getting 81.9 as your correct answer. So 81.91. And you can see the working out there on the screen. Let me see if I can. Oh, that's a bit big. Okay, so that's phase one, 81.91 degrees. Now for the second part of the question, so we've got this as 81.91. Now I want you to find me the distance BC. And while you work on that, David, I will take your question. Is David's hand still up?
He put his hand down.
Okay.
Oh, it's in the chat. He says, why was the sine rule used?
So the sine rule was used because it was the only one that would get us to the answer in this scenario. We didn't have the correct combination of information for the other ones. Now, okay, what tool are we going to use to find BC? That's the other thing I want to ask. So I'm now asking you to find the distance BC, but what tool am I going to use for that? Okay, so Amina, what I want you to do is we figured out what the angle was at the beginning. So we figured out that A was 81.91. We're now going to work on the question which says find the distance BC, which is this length over here. And that's what I would like you to try and work out. Now, before we work it out, I want you to tell me what tool am I going to use in order to work that out. And so let's first see that in the chat. I would say that I would use the cos rule, yes, because you've got this, and you've got the angle in between them, which is the perfect way to work out the distance BC, or what I would call little a. And so I would use the cos rule. However, you don't have to use the cos rule. You could also use the sine rule by going a over the sine of 80. So both ways would work, actually, to be honest. And so choose whichever way is comfortable. And then let's compare our answers after we've done them. So some people can do the sine rule. In fact, and some people can use the cos rule, and we'll see that we get the same answer. So let's give that a go. I'll use what should I use? I'll use the sine rule this time, but the cos rule would also work. So if I would use the sine rule, I would go A over the, let's make it BC, over the sine of 81.91. And that would be equal to 11 over the sine of 37. We get that. So let's see what we get for our answers. So we should be getting 18.096, or if we round that off, it's going to be 18.1 meters. I would love for someone, did somebody use the cos rule, and can they tell us what they got? So would somebody be willing to raise their hand and tell us what they got using the cos rule for BC? I just want to confirm for our students that both rules will work in the scenario. So Shane, I'm coming to you. What rule did you use, Shane?
I used the cos rule.
Okay, and what did you get?
18.1.
Okay, perfect. So we agreed that as long as we use the right tool for the job, we get the same answer. And so it's a personal preference as to which of the two to use. Thank you, Shane. Okay, so we've done BAC, we've done that. I want you now to find me the area of triangle ABC. So the area of triangle ABC, and again, you have a choice as to what you want to work with. But I'm going to leave it to you guys to try and work that out using your knowledge of something called the area rule. So a half, I know the area rule looks something like this. Now I need to decide what goes in those blank spaces. What am I going to choose? Oh, this thing's stuck on the screen for some reason. Okay. I'm going to use, so I've got A or BC was, so I'll use that 18.1, and then I'll use the 16. So I'm using this bit and that bit, which means I need to use the 37, which is there. And let's see what everyone gets for that. Times. And there are other ways to have done that, but you should get 87. And this is a matter of rounding. So we're going to be 18.1. Okay, so you should be getting around 87.12. And that should be, the units should be meters squared. Okay, so everyone, I just wanted to do a quick, that was our first proper question. And we've done a variety of rules. Give us the thumbs up if you're feeling okay. Give us a thumbs down if you feel like we're going a little bit too fast. Just want to get a sense of the class. And we are now trying to get to the exam type questions today. And that's why we're going a bit faster. Okay, cool. Take a screenshot if you need to. So can you please explain why you used that angle specifically? It didn't have to be that angle. So a very good question has come in and said, why did I use 37? I could have used 61.1. I could have used the angle up here, but then I would have had to have worked with the sides 11 and A, or in this case, it was with BC. So if I chose that angle, I had to work with the two sides that were next to it. Okay. Let's go to the next question. I want you to tell me, not the answer. I want someone to come online and tell me a strategy. I'm going to try and find this angle up here, angle ABD. But in order to do that, I need to go on a journey. And I want everyone to just take a minute to look at this problem. And then maybe somebody can give us a hint about how would you plot your journey to find that angle? What tools do you think you would use? What roads do you think you would use? I'd love for someone to, and it doesn't even have to be right, but I just want you to start thinking about, this is maybe a compound question where you have to use more than one tool. And it's helpful to discuss kind of how you decide. Aha, Jenna has made a comment. Anna Bob has also made a comment. I like where you're going with that. I do. Would anybody like to tell us audibly? Otherwise, I'll read that out. So what Jenna has said is that she would try and find BD using the sine rule. So that was Jenna's advice. And I think that's pretty good advice, because if I find BD, then I'll have all three sides in that triangle which I think means I can use one of the rules. And so Musa has said, then you would use the cos rule. I agree. So between Jenna and Musa, I think we've got a plan, guys. Like, so we're going to find BD using the sine rule. And then we're going to use the cos rule to find angle ABD. So let's make our first goal, find BD and put it in the chat. And then if you get stuck, you can also raise your hand and ask a question. But I think Musa and Jenna have given us a good way to think about this question. So let's go and do it. Over to you guys. Yeah, so what I like to do is I always start with the thing I'm trying to find. And so I get that. Now, what's my BD answer going to be? Give a little bit more time.
We already have an answer from Jenna and Letokonodo.
Okay. Yeah, we'll give a bit. I see some time, a few more students are coming through. So if you are unsure about how we're doing this, please do ask. But basically what I need to do in this step is I need to move that sine of 50 to the other side, and then I should have my answer for BD. And if we're going to round to one decimal place, then we should be getting 6 point. So I'm going to run my drawing 6.9. So if we assume that BD is 6.9, what is the answer we're going to get for ABD? And I'm going to suggest that we use the cos rule because we've got all three sides in this triangle. So how do we write that out? And we know that we know it's going to have this like fractional form. When we use the cos rule to find for an angle, it's always going to have this sort of fraction where it has like different pieces. The bottom piece looks like that. Then there's like a piece down here, and then a piece in front of that. So let's see if you can figure out what this angle is going to be. In the previous lessons, what I've always done is I've said when you're trying to find an angle, always look at the side that's opposite that angle when using the cos rule and write that down first so that you don't forget. Okay. So what we're going to do, I want to know who can tell me what's going to go in this block here. So that I'll call that block 1. And then I want to know what's going to go in these two brackets at the bottom. If you're willing to share, pop that in the chat. Or I see some of you are already coming through with answers of the angle, and that's fantastic. Is anybody willing to share and tell us what's in this block at the top here? Okay, so we've got this 5 there. It's just going to be 6.5 squared plus 6.9 squared. And over here, we're just going to have our 6.5 and 6.9. But we still need to figure out what the actual angle is. And so how are we going to do that? Because we're going to get a value for this. And then after that, we're going to have to go shift cos or inverse cos. And we should get 5 squared plus. It's very helpful to use the fraction button in your calculator when you're doing these in order to, yeah. Bracket. We should be getting, according to my calculator, the angle for ABD should be 43.69. And if we're rounding off to one decimal place, which we're doing here, it would be 43.7 degrees. All right. Everyone, give us a thumbs up if you're feeling good. Give us a thumbs down if we're going a little bit fast. And then what I want you to do is I want you to stand up. And I want you to stretch. Oh, double click. Oh, my back is clicking, guys. This is a bit worrying. Eesh. Okay. Pop those cameras on and roll those shoulders for a second.
Exactly. Come on, guys, join us in the stretch. Give your body a break.
Show your body you care. Show your body you care, guys.
Today we don't have any cameras on.
Oh my goodness, guys, come on. My body is too old. Kevin, that's you are in grade 11. Your body is, it's like happiest time ever. Okay. Let's go quickly to a little brain break that I'll have for you guys. See if you can tell me. See if you can tell me what each of these animals weigh. Okay, so I see that Rachel has said that the bear is 60. And Shane has said that the bunny is 10. And then what is the fox? So the fox is going to be 20. Yep. Aha, Keklejo. Oh, sorry, Keklejo, did you want to give the answer? Let me unmute you. Hi, Keklejo.
Hi, can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear, yes.
I'm having problems with the previous question. The one of the to find angle.
Okay, what
AB.
previous question did I? Okay, where did I lose you on that one?
I got lost. I don't know, but let's start from the beginning. As in, like, to find the angle, to find the length of BD. I'm good with that. I just need to know how to find AB.
Okay. Can I suggest you look at, I did a lesson called the cos rule, finding angles. I did a whole lesson just working on how to write out this fraction, because it is quite tricky the first time you just magically start writing this down. And so we literally spent the whole lesson learning how to do that. And so it was literally lesson 6. And so if you go to the Watobe website, you literally will only have to watch about 10 minutes of it. But that will help you, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Pleasure. All right. Let us go to, let's do this question. Actually, no, let's do this question. Okay. Different type of question. And so what I want to know, if somebody's willing to come online and sort of help us, or in the chat, in this question, you are trying to find the perimeter of the triangle. But you are given the area of the triangle. I want to know, how can we connect the triangle, which has 2 sides, the area and the perimeter? What do you think our game plan is going starting? What would you do? Okay, so there's a couple of different choices. So some people are saying use the cos rule. The problem is you actually don't have the angle in between the 2 sides, so you can't use the cos rule. So Nelly has said start with the area rule. Okay, what would you find with the area rule, Nelly? Well, you wouldn't be able to find BC, but you couldn't you use the area rule? Couldn't you be sneaky? See how? Yes. I think you could find this angle by using the area rule. So you know what the area is. There's this thing called the area rule, like half AB sine C, or in this case, we could write it as, let's write it with the sine of A. So half BC times the sine of A. Now, can't we fill in what we know the area is? The area is 25. And what are the 2 sides going to be? The 2 sides are going to be 8 and 10. So what I want you to do is I want you to find for me what is the angle A as a first step. Then once you find angle A, I think you may be able to find the thing BC that you're looking for. But let's just see. Can you find angle A for me? So what we need to do now is we need to use inverse sine, and we need to use inverse sine on this thing over here to get our angle A. So we have what are you guys getting as your angle? You should be getting 38.68 degrees. And so now you've found that this is 38.68. Okay, now I think that you can find, what rule are we going to use now? In the chat, I want you guys to tell me, in order to find the perimeter, I know that I need BC, because BC is the last side I don't know. What rule am I going to use now, since I have the angle between those 2 sides? Yes, it's the cos rule. Okay. So find me BC, and then find me the perimeter of the whole triangle. So we know we're going to start, we write the cos rule out, it's going to be BC squared And so think about what are the different parts of the cos rule that are going to happen here. And we're writing it down in terms of sides. So I think one of the sides is definitely going to be 8 squared. And then the other side is going to be 10 squared. And ask yourself, what else has to be folded in? Okay, so we should have, if we equal those out, what do we get for BC? Put your answer in the chat. Okay, and what do we get there? We get 6.25. And then, so the final perimeter is just 8 plus 10 plus 6.25, which should give us 24.25, and that's going to be centimeters. Okay. Any questions about that one before I go on? Can you see how we can mix the rules together and how we can give you some information and then you work backwards to get the other bits? Okay, cool. Well, then let's move on to another question. Take a screenshot if you can, and then we'll move on from there. So what you're going to do is you are going to answer this question for me. Let's make it a little bit smaller. Step 1, let's do A together. So calculate the length of fence AC correct to 1 decimal place. That is question 1. And this is from an old exam. You can see the mark allocation. What tool am I going to use to find AC? And then once you know what tool it is, put it in the chat and then get on and find me what the length of AC is. You guys are doing well. It is the cos rule indeed, because you're given 2 sides and include an angle. Now find me what AC is equal to. Yes, Boitomelo, that is correct. Cos rule. Now I want you to get better at writing out the cos rule. If you're trying to find AC, how would you write out the cos rule? So I think first step, AC squared. So that should be step 1. And then can you get to the final answer? Obviously, you have to square root both sides here, guys. And so I'm leaving out the intermediate step. Let's just make sure we all get that. So we should get 26 point, let's go to 1 decimal place, so 26.6. Okay, so this should be 26.6. Now, what I want you to do is I want you now to find the size of angle BAC. So BAC is the angle down here. And again, I want to ask you, what rule am I going to use to find angle BAC? Actually, it turns out there's a choice. You actually could use either. So basically, if I look at this, I've got all three sides. So I could use the cos rule, or I could use the sine rule. Both choices would be fine. I will just choose one of them, and then you'll see those who did it the other way, you'll see you get the same answer. Okay, go ahead and do it. And I'll choose a method, but you could use either the sine or the cos rule here. So I will use the sine rule just because I've been using the cos rule so much lately. So sine of BAC over 12 is going to be opposite the sine of 110 over 26.6. And then we need to find what our angle is. Now, those who did the cos rule, yeah, you'll see in a moment, we'll get the same answer, but let's just give it a little bit more time. Okay, so I get 25 to 1 decimal place, it would be 25.1. And let's stay with that for now. So 25.1. And so this angle over here should be 25.1 degrees. And for those, some of you will have got 25.08, but then it rounds off to 25.1. So that you will notice that if you use the cos or the sine rule, it also works fine. Now I want you to find me the size of angle D, which is down here. This is the next question. Now, in this question, do we use the sine rule or the cos rule? Which tool do you think we're going to use to find the angle D? Do we have a choice in this one? Okay, you're right, Nelly. We have to use the cos rule here because we don't have another angle. We only have the three sides. And so in this scenario, we have to use the cos rule. Yeah. Okay, so think about how you would find the cos rule. You know the length of the one side is 26.6 from earlier in the question. And you need to think, how do I write this out correctly? I'll give you a bit of time to think about that and try and find me the angle D. And guys, while students are working on this, if anybody would like to ask a question, now is a great time to raise your hand. Okay. Well, I've got a moment to just look at the chat here. And for those who weren't here for our lesson on the cos rule, we did this so that we could write out the cos rule very easily in either form. And so that's the key in this question is you basically want to know, in one step, you want to know how to write out the cos rule where the angle is the subject of the formula. And the key to doing that really was recognizing what side is opposite. So in this case, that's going to be there. And then on the bottom, we're going to have that. So we're going to go this. And then this is going to be that times that. And so I know from past experience in the classroom that a lot of the time it's practicing writing out the cos rule where the angle is the focus, getting used to doing that, or writing out the cos rule when the side is the focus, and getting comfortable moving that around in your head for any different question is really what most of the practice is about here. Okay, let's see what everyone's getting. So you should be getting, let's stay with one decimal place, 71.3 degrees. So 71.3, and in this case, you had to use the cos rule. All right. Awesome, Kevin. I'm glad to hear that. Okay, let's move on to the last question of this question. Calculate the area of the entire piece of land ABCD. What tool are you going to use in order to find the area of this entire piece of land? In fact, I'd love, if someone's feeling brave enough, I would love you to tell me what your strategy is. So what tool, and then what strategy could you use to find the area, or pop it in the chat and I'll read it out. But who has a plan for how I can find the area of this whole shape?
Mr. S. Kakleko's hand is up.
What is the plan of action, Kakleko? How are we going to find this area?
Okay, my plan actually is to find the area of the first triangle, which is ABC.
Okay,
and,
so triangle ABC, yeah.
And then find the area of triangle ACD.
Okay.
Yes, and add them together to find the whole area of that whole piece of land.
Perfect. Now, what tool are you going to use? You told me about the triangles. What tool are you going to use?
On the first triangle, I'm going to use the area rule.
Okay.
Same goes to the other triangle.
So basically, you're going to use the area rule for both. And I see why, because you've got two sides and the included angle. So we just worked out what D was, which means we have the two sides, and we have an angle in between that side, which makes sense to me. And then for the other one, we've got the two sides, and we've got, so I think you've given us a good tip. Thank you, Kakeko. I'll let you get back to that, but you've sent us a question. There we go. So let's do this, people. I think we're going to finish off with this one for today. And that was fantastic advice. And then this one's going to be. So what do we have? And then for that one, it would be 7/28. And so what are you getting, guys? 6 times 20 times. So I got 112.76 here. And then for the other one, I get 92.83. When we add them together, we should get 205.6, and that will be meters squared. All right, so we really have today, up until today, each lesson we had been doing one tool individually. And today we have started to mix them all together. And what students typically find is that they don't know the rules as well as they thought they did. When you have to almost choose the right tool for the job, it takes quite a bit of energy to think about what tool is needed. And so in the next lesson, what we're going to carry on doing is we're going to carry on getting good at knowing what is my strategy, what is my tool, and then executing with the use of that tool. Now, some of you may find it helpful, though, before Wednesday to go back and look at some of the old videos. So if you were unsure of, for example, if you were mystified as to how I did this part down here so quickly, the reason I could do it so quickly is I know the cos rule when it's written in terms of angles or when it's focusing on angles, but I also know how to write the cos rule when it focuses on, when I'm focusing on sides. So that would be, it's the same rule, but it's just written in a way where a side or an angle is the focus. And so you need to get good at that in order to be able to use the tool whenever it's needed.